All right, welcome back to the deep dive. You know we love getting into the weird stuff here, and today is no exception. We're diving into a text that's been requested quite a bit.
Oh yeah, this one's a doozy.
Treatise of Sexual Alchemy, the divine science of transmutation and spiritual awakening.
Quite a mouthful.
Definitely sets the stage, though, doesn't it? And you guys have been asking for us to break this one down. It's dense, it's full of symbolism and layers. So basically, you want the cheat sheet.
The Spark Notes version.
Exactly, without getting bogged down in every single detail. So that's our goal today. We're going to extract those key ideas from the Treatise of Sexual Alchemy.
And it's interesting because this treatise tries to do that itself. It pulls from all over the place. The Book of the Dead, the Bible, you've got salt, sulfur, mercury, all these alchemical concepts.
All trying to paint a picture of spiritual transformation. It's ambitious.
Hugely ambitious. And for us, to really boil this down for you, the mission is to understand those fundamental principles. What is this sexual alchemy at its core? And how does it lead to the transmutation and spiritual awakening the treatise is so focused on?
All right, let's get into it. The treatise starts off strong, eating the 7 loaves of bread. Right off the bat, it pulls from the Book of the Dead, chapters 51 and 52, to be precise, and starts talking about abstaining from filthiness. Now, we're not talking about taking a shower here, are we?
No, not quite. It gets pretty metaphorical. It's saying that just like you wouldn't eat something rotten.
Right, got to keep things clean.
You shouldn't let your mind consume rotten ideas either. Flawed theories, limiting beliefs, all that stuff. It's about mental purity as the first step.
Okay, interesting. So instead of junk food for the mind, we get this image of the 7 loaves of bread. The treatise calls this the wisdom of our 7 serpents. 7 serpents. Well, that's a loaded image. What's the basic idea here?
So you've got these 7 serpents. Think of them like energy centers, forces within us. 2 groups of 3 and then a 7th.
Okay, 2 groups of 3 and the 7th one.
That's the big one, the culmination, the tongue of fire, the treatise calls it. It's about unifying all those different energies, connecting us to something greater. And the 7 loaves, those represent the wisdom that comes from each of those energy centers, like a map of inner wisdom.
And these loaves aren't just some abstract concept. The treatise links this 7-part wisdom to specific sacred texts.
It does. And it's from all over, too. The Bible, the Book of the Dead, the Zend-Avesta, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, even the Vedas. It's saying there's this universal spiritual current running through all these traditions.
Interesting. Okay. So we've got this inner wisdom, these loaves to consume. And the treatise sets the scene, too. We're eating this wisdom under the sycamore tree of the lady. She's called the priestess of the alchemical laboratory. What's the sycamore tree all about in this context?
The sycamore tree, well, the treatise sees it as a symbol of our sexual energy, that raw, potent life force we all have within us.
Gotcha.
And the alchemical laboratory, that's our own being, right?
Yeah.
The priestess spouse. She's vital in the transformation of these energies. So the setting itself tells you sexuality is at the heart of this alchemical work.
Okay, so sexual energy is our starting point.
Yeah.
What about this bread which is brought before Thoth? This bread of the Christ mind, what's that all about?
That's a good question. The bread of the Christ mind, it's linked to Thoth, the Egyptian god, right? But really, it's pointing towards a higher state of consciousness.
An awakened state.
Exactly. Like by working with our sexual energy in this alchemical way, we can kind of partake in this special bread, this Christ mind. And that helps us free ourselves. The treatise calls them the 4 bodies of sin. We break free and reach this state of truth and balance. It calls it the room of the double mat.
Interesting. So the first part is all about getting our minds right and recognizing that there's this potent transformative energy within our sexuality. Then the treatise dives into core alchemical principles: salt, mercury, and sulfur. Now, you hear those words and you might think of some old chemistry lab, but how should we think about them in this context?
Yeah, they're not just chemicals here. They're deeper. They're like these fundamental energetic principles that are working within us. Sulfur, think of that as the fire. It's the driving force that pushes transformation. Mercury, that's the spirit, the fluid, vital essence that connects everything. And salt. Salt represents mastery, stability, form.
And it makes a big deal about these 3 principles needing to be pure, perfect for the alchemy to work. Why is that so important?
Imagine you're baking a cake, right? If your ingredients are bad, your cake's going to be bad too. It's the same idea. The treatise says the purity of these energies inside us, that's what determines whether we can achieve this transmutation, This creation of the red elixir and the white elixir, those are the big goals here.
So where do we find this raw material that has this pure salt, mercury, and sulfur? It's not something we're buying at a store, right?
Nope. This one is pretty direct, actually. It says, the crude matter of the great work, it's inside us. In the semen, it says, semen contains pure, clear, white and red mercury, sulfur too, and both fixed and volatile salt.
So it's saying that the very essence of our sexuality is the raw ingredient for this huge spiritual transformation.
That's the core of it, yeah. And it goes on to explain that through this alchemical science and the fire, now again, not literal fire.
Right.
It's talking about this transformative energy. Through that, this substance can be refined, perfected over and over again.
And this fire thing keeps popping up. It's not a physical flame, though, right? What's it actually represent in this inner alchemy?
Think of it like this. In regular alchemy, you use heat, right? But here, the fire is more this intense energy that comes from specific practices. The goal is to refine these inner bodies using this matter of our blessed stone, which we already talked about.
The sexual energy.
Right, that's the fuel, and the fire is what refines it.
And it's not just like set it and forget it, right?
Yeah.
The treatise talks about baking, baking, and rebaking. What's that about?
It's saying this magisterium of fire, this process of baking or sexual transmutation, it's ongoing. You can't just do it once and call it good. And it warns about weakening or putting out this fire. And what puts it out? Ejaculation. It basically says, if you do that, you fail at the great work.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection here. And that brings us to this imagery of the furnace and the receptacle. Those sound like alchemy tools, too. What are they metaphors for here?
They are, yeah. There's this quote from Aristotle that the treatise brings up. It talks about baking mercury in a triple receptacle of very hard glass. And get this, the furnace is the virile member and the vulva, when they're connected. And the receptacle is the sexual act, but done without ejaculation.
So the heat comes from that union, that sexual energy being contained. And that's the fire needed to start this transformation.
That's it. Keeping that fire going, not letting it get weak or go out. It even compares it to the heat in mines, how it transforms raw elements into precious metals. It's all about controlled, contained application of that sexual energy.
Then things take a turn for the symbolic. We run into this idea of navigating the underworld. Pretty intense imagery. And it ties back into the Book of the Dead, chapter 99. What's this metaphorical journey all about?
Yeah, the underworld here isn't some literal place underground. It's more about our subconscious, our shadow selves.
All those darker parts of ourselves.
Exactly. It's the stuff we need to face, to integrate. And there's this black stone that comes up that symbolizes this stage where we have to pull light out of the darkness within.
Like mining for spiritual gold.
Exactly.
And we do this through a boat journey, which has a whole bunch of symbolic stuff going on. The treatise mentions the boat of existence and Apep, the tempting serpent of Eden. What do those represent?
The boat of existence is our journey through life with all its challenges. And Apep, that serpent, think temptation. Anything that could lead us off track, derail our transformation. The treatise says we have to pull the fire from the evil and immaculate whiteness from the darkness through sexual magic with our spouse.
And this isn't a passive journey, is it? It talks about stealing cups of wisdom as the Kundalini energy goes up, vertebra by vertebra. What's going on there?
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Each step the Kundalini takes up the spine, it's like a level up in wisdom. Those cups are like treasures of knowledge taken from the depths of ourselves. And remember those 7 loaves we talked about?
Yeah, serpent wisdom.
Yep, that's all connected to the wisdom we find in the spine too.
Wow, okay. It's getting pretty complex. And then we get even more intense imagery. A rainstorm of great bitterness and the decapitation of John the Baptist. Those sound like some serious trials on this spiritual path. What do they symbolize?
Yeah, they're not literal, of course. The rainstorm, that's all about going through tough times, emotional cleansing. The decapitation of John the Baptist, if that happens symbolically, 7 times as those 7 serpents rise. It's about letting go of our ego, those limitations of our ordinary mind.
And in the middle of this underworld, the alchemy keeps going. The stone changes color, thickens, dissolves, brightens. It's like a total metamorphosis within.
It is. All these phases represent the different levels of transmutation happening as we integrate those shadow aspects.
Yeah.
It even said the different parts of the boat, the wood, the rudder, the rope.
It all has meaning.
All symbolic tools that help us on our journey.
Fascinating. Okay. The treatise also brings up fallen stars in this underworld. Their path is blocked by something called the tongue of Ra, which is described as longing for light or initiation. It's a beautiful image of that yearning for something more. What's the takeaway there?
It's saying even those who are lost, who've strayed from the path, they still have that spark of spiritual yearning. But the way back is closed until they actively start the process of initiation. And Antihu comes up too. He's the guide after crucifixion, death, and resurrection. So you've got the theme of spiritual rebirth popping up again.
And that image of being embalmed for death and shrouded in the underworld for each initiation, that really drives home how transformative this all is, constantly letting go of the old to become something new.
Exactly. Each step is a death of old patterns and the birth of a more refined, more enlightened state.
Okay. The treatise introduces the red lion and the green lion. They sound like major players in this alchemical world. The red lion is drinkable gold and transmuted semen, the wine of light. What's the meaning behind that potent imagery?
The red lion is like the ultimate goal. It's perfected sexual energy,
Mhm.
semen that's been fully transmuted through this whole alchemical process. And it's super important to distill it, to make it totally pure. The treatise calls it removing the sourness. This red lion is linked with the sacred fire, and it needs to be baked 3 times to get the perfect tincture of the sun, which it says gives you the power of spiritual resurrection.
And it ties that into Christ's resurrection on the third day and the awakening of the Kundalini in the astral body. So it's not just a physical change, it's a big spiritual awakening too.
It is. It's about deep spiritual realization, mastery over those subtle realms.
Now we've got the green lion too, which is tied to the idea of vitriol, with red for passion and white for purity. What does the green lion represent here?
The green lion is interesting. The treatise says we enter the world of passion through what it calls erotic doors. And the idea is to take spiritual fire. It's described as cups of the spinal column from the devil,
Which represents.
our lower untransformed nature. Basically, it's about fighting those inner demons, those temptations. And each cup we get, it starts glowing white in the vertebra, which means it's been purified.
It sounds pretty intense. Going down into those depths of ourselves, then coming back up. But the green lion is a good thing, right? It's that natural balsam with healing power and our internal angel, the innermost.
Exactly. It's a tough journey through our passions and desires, but the green lion represents that healing, regenerative power we all have within us. It's our true self, guiding us, restoring us.
Then the treatise jumps into astral tinctures and how they're needed for metallic transmutations. These aren't like actual dyes, are they? What are they in this whole alchemy thing?
No, not literal dyes. Think of them as refined energies needed to change our internal metals, which stand for different parts of our being. There's the mother tincture, which is this powerful combo of metallic water, that's the semen, the soil of the red sun, or sexual organs, and sun sulfur, that awaken Kundalini energy.
And it says this mother tincture has to go through 3 solidifications representing the body, soul, and spirit. It really highlights how this work is about the whole person, not just one part.
Right, uniting and purifying every level of our being. The treatise also says that different planetary tinctures,
Mars or gold.
exactly, they affect our 7 bodies, our 7 serpents. It's bringing in astrology, showing how it's all connected to our inner energy.
And the big goal here seems to be creating the phoenix of the philosophers. It comes from the retort of our sexual laboratory, which means.
Spiritual resurrection. The phoenix, it's about complete transformation, spiritual rebirth through all this alchemical work. And the 7 serpents, they're tied to the 7 cosmo creators. So we're talking about aligning ourselves with the creative forces of the universe itself.
And the treatise even goes back to the Book of the Dead, right? It talks about the God of one face, our innermost, and the 7 beings supporting the scale of judgment. It links that to the rising of the 7 serpents and a symbolic inner battle. It's amazing how much it draws from that text.
It's a recurring theme, definitely. It all comes back to self-assessment, getting rid of the impurities, overcoming our lower tendencies. And the result, the elixir of long life, through the red and white elixirs, and the opening of these worlds inside us. It's a huge transformation.
And the serpent Sata from the Book of the Dead, the one who dies and is reborn every day.
That's about the constant cycle of transformation, the need for renewal and rebirth on a spiritual level. And yeah, it even lists the colors linked to the different planetary tinctures. It gets pretty detailed.
Wow. Okay, let's get into this idea of the 2 witnesses. It comes from the Book of Revelation, right? The treatise says these are the 2 ganglionic cords, Ida and Pingala, the ones that carry semen up to the brain when we don't have an orgasm. Why is this interpretation so important?
The 2 witnesses, those are key energy channels in our subtle body. And the treatise says when we conserve sexual energy, solar atoms go up the right channel, lunar atoms up the left towards the brain. That upward flow of energy, that's what sparks the awakening.
And that's where Kundalini comes in, right? That powerful energy that awakens when these solar and lunar energies meet at the Triveni near the Muladhara chakra.
You got it. The treatise says the ascending Kundalini is like that bronze serpent that healed the Israelites in the Bible. All about healing, transformation. But then there's the descending serpent, and that's connected to the tail of Satan, or Kundratiquador. That's what happens when we misuse sexual energy. So it's all about the direction of that serpent power.
And there's that warning again, right? Don't give in to the serpent of Eden, don't spill the semen.
Right. It all comes back to conserving that energy.
And with each rising serpent, there's that symbolic beheading of John the Baptist again.
Letting go of the ego, yep.
It's all connected.
It is. Self-mastery, conquering those lower desires. That's the core of this process.
The treatise even has this image of the innermost as a divine crocodile, snatching up its prey.
Which represents?
The psychic integrations we need for self-realization.
Right. And then you have the serpent Riak, the one that stands for fornication, trembling before God, and this divine crocodile, Sebek. Sebek is the innermost with those three aspects, the divine soul, the human soul, the Christ mind.
So it's showing that inner struggle.
Exactly. Base instincts versus divine potential. It really drives home that point. And it comes back to raising the seminal energy through those two witnesses to wake up the Kundalini in the 33 vertebrae. Each one holds that divine wisdom.
Like those 7 loaves.
Exactly. And it defines filthiness again, not just impure thoughts this time. It's fornication, adultery, hatred, selfishness, even misleading spiritual doctrines. It's a whole picture of what holds us back from this progress. It's about every aspect of ourselves, body, mind, and emotions, all part of the transformation.
Okay. Then the treatise moves into the chaos and the 7 days of creation, making this fascinating link between the Genesis creation story and the alchemical creation within us through sexual spaderism. It's a pretty bold connection.
It's deep stuff. It says the chaos is actually the semen, that primordial substance with the potential for all creation.
Like the cosmic egg.
Exactly. And to create our own bodies of liberation, we have to basically mimic that divine act of creation.
By working with our sexual energy.
Right, transmuting it through this vivifying fire.
So the biblical idea of separating light from darkness, that's mirrored in the alchemy of refining our sexual energy, elevating our spiritual essence.
Precisely. And it brings in the emerald tablet of Hermes Trismegistus.
Yeah.
You know, as above, so below.
Right.
It's saying that same process of creation is happening within us, in our seminal system, our own little microcosm. And the masters, they work with this inner chaos to actually create universes within and take on these huge karmic responsibilities.
Wow, that's powerful. And spaderism comes into play here, right? Defined as to extract and reunite. It links that to some ancient medicine found in Eden, which it equates to the act of sex itself. How do we make sense of that connection?
Spaderism, think of it like this. You separate the pure stuff from the impure stuff, then you recombine it to make something more powerful. And the treatise says the chaos is in all plants.
Represented by the semen.
Right. And it's the same in us, in our sexual glands. They call it the plant human being. By working with that chaos through sexual alchemy, we transmute the tatwas, those fundamental energies of nature.
It's really interesting how medieval spaderists used that term, plant human being. It definitely suggests this link between spaderism and sexual alchemy that's been around for a while. And it connects the 7 planets to the 7 snakes and our development within this zodiacal uterus.
Zodiacal uterus.
Through those practices, like astrology meets alchemy meets biology. How does that all fit together?
It is, yeah. It's saying the 7 planets influence how our inner energy centers, those 7 snakes, develop through sexual alchemy, kind of like a baby in the womb. It says the snakes were originally on the spine, pure potential before some kind of fall, and now they're in the Muladhara chakra. Raising those serpents, that's how we become more than human.
And those 7 serpents tie into everything, too. The 7 distillations in spaderism, the 7 days of creation, even the 7 great initiations of the major mysteries. It's a whole interconnected system.
It is. And the treatise even brings up that story from the Bible, the young Jews in the fiery furnace.
The ones who came out unharmed.
Right. It says that's an allegory for the 7 alchemical distillations. The unharmed figures are like the purified parts of ourselves. And that 4th figure, the one like the Son of God, that's the Christ mind awakening within.
Okay, that's pretty wild. Finally, we arrive at the Great Arcanum. It's the 7th great mystery of creation, hidden in the 7th seal of the Apocalypse. And its number is 888. That represents the rite of magicians and reducing the 7 down to the spiritual 3. This sounds like the ultimate secret.
It is the biggest, most closely guarded secret. the key to cosmic creation and to our own spiritual mastery. And the medulla, the ganglionic cords, they make up the caduceus of Mercury, which is shaped like an 8.
Right, I see it.
That 888, it gets established in our higher spiritual bodies through those higher initiations, after we've raised those first 4 serpents.
And it says the Ark of the Covenant is actually the 7th great mystery, the great arcanum itself. And it's sexual alchemy in practice.
Right.
It's presented as vital for us to survive this critical hour, as it puts it.
It really emphasizes how important this knowledge is for humanity right now.
And all the parts of the Ark, too. The cathedral of the soul, our sexual organs, the reed of Aaron, the stone tablets with the commandments, all covered in pure gold, which is sexual alchemy, and those cherubims on each side, man and woman with the phallus and uterus.
It's all pointing towards this path.
And it doesn't mess around. It says those who despise the Ark will perish. Strong words.
No ambiguity there. This knowledge is paramount.
Okay. The last part, our work in red and in white, talks about the 5 regimes of the philosophical stone. And the first one is reducing metals to their basic matter.
Which it says is sexual magic.
Right. So what are these 5 regimes all about in this whole system?
They're the steps in the alchemical transformation. Philosophical sulfur is that red tincture, the awakened Kundalini. The white and red elixirs are silver and gold.
Feminine and masculine.
You got it. And a big part is whitening this black water.
Which is?
That's the unrefined mercury. We whiten it with the pure gold of the spirit.
And then there's the crow flying from Noah's Ark.
That's the perfect mercury.
And the dove is the Holy Spirit.
Yep. It's all about death and resurrection, losing everything to gain everything.
And those 2 torches, gold and silver, man and woman, they produce the elixir of perfection, the sun. And those 4 waters involved. The first 2 are the red and white elixirs.
Right. And the philosophical stone itself, it's black, red, and white. This whole work is about that loving union of sexual magic to whiten that black crow.
And it says the foundation of all mystery schools, it's all rooted in sex.
It brings up all these examples, too. Isis and Osiris, Hercules and Dagon, Apollo and Diana, Pluto and Persephone, the Lingam Yoni, all these masculine and feminine pairings in different cultures. It's saying this is a universal truth. And it even gives those mantras, IAO, dis, dis, dis. Those are fundamental to sexual alchemy. It's super specific about practicing slowly, gently, withdrawing before the spasm.
And over it stresses how secret this knowledge has been throughout history. People were punished severely for revealing it. It makes it sound so powerful and so dangerous to use incorrectly.
It is. It's not to be taken lightly.
And in the end, it claims you can do all these incredible things through these secrets. Transmuting lead into gold, becoming a god, inhabiting the world of the mist of fire, even creating universes. Those are huge claims.
They are. It's a bold statement about human potential.
And it's firm about sexual magic being only for married couples.
Right, because of those negative consequences that come from misusing that energy.
And it goes back to the importance of fire, right? That super astral light with its positive and negative poles, Kundalini and Kunataiguador. It says that's the basis of all creation.
It's the primal energy.
And it talks about Buddhi, the spiritual soul, how it has to mature through sexual magic to wake up to absolute consciousness and be born in the absolute, independent of the soul of the world. And ultimately, it leads to the Arhat's path, renouncing even nirvana for the sake of this great work.
It's saying the ultimate goal goes beyond even the highest states of bliss. It's about reaching a state of pure being in the uncreated light of life.
So we've gone on this deep dive into the Treatise of Sexual Alchemy, and it's clear we've only scratched the surface. It's a dense text, packed with symbolism, that presents sexual transmutation as the key to spiritual awakening.
And definitely just a glimpse. Yeah.
And it draws from all these different sources, from alchemy to ancient wisdom traditions, to build this complex system.
It does. It's a unique and sometimes challenging look at how we can evolve spiritually. It really highlights the power of sexual energy when it's consciously directed, and how our inner world is linked to the entire cosmos.
And that brings us to our final thought for you. Think about this idea of inner transformation, using our own vital energies, even if the methods described here are a lot to take in. How does that resonate with you? How does the idea of consciously working with those basic energies within us maybe lead to a more awakened, more realized state of being?
It's a great question to ponder. And if all this has piqued your interest, I'd say go explore it further, dive into the source material, look into related esoteric traditions. There's a whole world of knowledge out there. Who knows? You might find some insights that are relevant to your own journey.